Welcome to Trulyfit, the online fitness marketplace connecting pros and clients through unique fitness business software.
Okay, Elizabeth, thanks for being here with the Trulyfit Podcast. Let's give the audience a background on your fitness career and your fitness life, how you got into fitness and what exactly you're doing now.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I started personal training in 2011. It was just a happenstance thing. I lost about 70 pounds in 2010 when I had a major life overhaul. I was graduating college and I'd gained around 70 pounds going through college, just stress, life, poor eating, sedentary life choices. I don't think I'd ever worked out in my entire life. And after I lost 70 pounds, someone suggested that I try personal training. So I was like, all right, sure, why not? And I got into that. I started working at a local gym with an in-house certification. So I wasn't even nationally certified at the time. And I worked there for a few years, not really learning much, not really doing a whole lot, and not being much of a benefit to my clients, I feel like. But I started really truly taking an interest in the fitness industry and in the field itself. And once interest took over, passion really blossomed. And so I was a personal trainer for 4 years. And then I decided to branch out on my own. I got an ACSM certification and I got an NCSF certification, both for just national certifications for personal training. Mm-hmm. And over the next couple of years training on my own, I think I learned more than in the first entire 4 or 5 years of personal training on the whole. Beyond that, I started getting interested in corrective exercise specialization around 2017. I had a couple of little injuries at the gym and I wanted to try and pinpoint what was, causing that and how I could go about fixing it and then changing, my movement patterns to address that. 2017, I started getting into StrongFit training, which is like a cross between strongman and CrossFit training. And it sort of opened my eyes to different movement systems. Then I got into anatomy trains, which if you're familiar with that at all, most people are by now, but that's like myofascial meridians and stuff like that. And then flash forward to 2020, I actually suffered a really bad back injury in March, 2 days before COVID struck and everything sort of shut down. I had the nucleus of a thoracic disc burst. Oh, wow. I managed to herniate the nucleus of a disc, which is an insanely long healing time. And that is where I truly got into corrective exercise. So that has taken over the last probably year to year and a half of my life, is not only bouncing back from that, but diving deep into the world of corrective exercise. And where has it been my entire life? I wish I could go back 10 years ago and start with corrective exercise, because it's just changed everything for me and my clients both. So it's been remarkable.
Yeah, it's funny how your path, whether it's physically or picking one job over another in the personal training world, will completely guide you to your niche, so to speak. And it's unfortunate. Sorry to hear about your injury, but I guess in glass half full, now you have a niche that you're passionate about and that you can help your clients with. I'm also a corrective exercise specialist, but unlike you, I don't really like it. Now, I learned a lot from it. I just know it's not my strength. And in my Fitness Business 101 book, I talk about how trainers have like different personalities. And sometimes you're more sort of like jovial and happy, and it's about creating an experience. I call that like a demonstrative trainer. And then sometimes you have a trainer who's like more direct, and I call them like an anatomical sleuth. Someone like you who can like look at the body and be like, I see like some valgus going on. Like, how do I correct the overactive or underactive thing? And I don't feel that I'm great at that or enjoy doing it. So I tend to make sure that my sessions are more of a general health and wellness approach. And I have the luxury of doing that because I have a waiting list of clients. Some people don't have the luxury of doing that. But anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying, as trainers, it's important to know your style of training and what you're good at, and sort of make your niche around that, right? So if you're someone like you who is going to tell us soon that you're really good at analyzing the body and seeing what's wrong and you love fixing those things, then that's the route you should go. And if you're someone who doesn't have that mindset, maybe science-wise, you're not someone who can pass those tests and understand those things, then maybe, group fitness is for you, but there's always an area that you can specialize in.
Yeah, you touched on something that really stood out to me, a direct trainer. And I can't say that I've been anything but from day one until today. That's all I can say that my training style has ever been with my clients. Almost to the point of no return with some clients, because some clients need a little, sugar coating or whatever. But when it comes to corrective exercise, the more direct you are, the better it is. And so I find that I've really flourished with that. Maybe in personal training, not so much, like, oh, hey, you're obese and it's your own fault. And, that kind of thing. It doesn't really fly so well all the time. But in corrective exercise, it's, oh, your, giant cloud shoes are really destroying your feet and your walking patterns and so on. And so that really does stick, and it actually helps.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's so important to, this is might sound like a little woo-woo or psychology stuff, but you have to understand yourself before you pick your niche. Because if you were to pick the niche being someone who wants to be direct, wants to tell people exactly what to do and has the answers, and you go into an area where it's just too fluff, it's not going to work, right? And vice versa. So I think it's really important as people listen to this, if you feel like your personality is that you are direct and that you're very sort of a scientific based approach, corrective exercise is for you. And that's the way to go. So let's talk about that a little bit. Can you sort of give a vague definition of what exactly a corrective exercise specialist is for anyone who doesn't know?
So I often say that a corrective exercise specialist is someone who really addresses more like global movement patterns rather than an injury site. The analogy that I always use is when you sit in one position for too long and you get really uncomfortable, and then you go to stand up and it's like, oh, that's really uncomfortable. Like my knee hurts now, my back hurts a little bit. Well, a corrective exercise gets you out of those positions that you've been in for 10 or 15 years. So if you've had forward head for like a decade and you just can't pull your head back anymore, that's the kind of stuff that a corrective exercise specialist would address, is like postural problems, chronic problems, muscle imbalance and dysfunction, and then often chronic pain comes along with it. So it's just from a global perspective, you're looking at the entire body's movement and positioning too.
Yeah, and I think that's a great definition. And I think some people assume that it's for specific clients, but I can tell you that everybody has these issues from their day-to-day life. I'll have a lot of clients who come in who point to an injury or tell me about an injury and assume it was from our last session or some workout they did. And 99% of the time, it's from their daily life living, right? So I have a guy come in and he was complaining about some shoulder pain, some pain in his lower trap, right? And we were going through, in his mind, he wanted to go through what we did in the last few days workout wise. And I told him, I was like, listen, I don't think this has anything to do with the workout. Tell me what you did in your day-to-day life. And he was like, oh, well, I took a 12-hour drive. I was driving my RV with my hand on top of the wheel for 12 hours. I said, so your hand was above your shoulder with one arm for 12 hours. And that's the lower trap that hurts. Yet you think it was the movements that we did for 30 minutes in the weight room. It's like, this is what happens with people. They neglect to look what's going on in their daily lives, whether it's sitting improperly or even people standing at their desk sometimes have a tendency to lean towards one leg. Not a big deal if you do that for one day, but if you've done that for 3 years, it's going to cause some issues. So I think it's important to really tell your clients that there's always going to be some sort of issue that can be corrected due to their day-to-day lifestyles.
Oh, absolutely. And then, there's so many things that people do on a daily basis that they don't even particularly, they wouldn't even think about, like carrying their purse on one shoulder over and over, carrying their kid on one side over and over, the types of shoes that they wear, even if you're wearing like a low kitten heel to work, that's like 2 inches tall and you think, oh, well, it's basically flat. It's not. And so that's, affecting everything from foot up. And I almost always start with like footwear with people. And it's amazing what just the wrong choice in shoes can do, because you wind up turning muscles that are designed to be rapid fire, power oriented muscles. You wind up turning them into postural muscles, like your gastroc, for instance. The powerful muscle that's supposed to help you jump now becomes chronically shortened and weak. And so it's no longer there to support you when you go to, I don't know, step off a curb and you wind up falling over and breaking your hip. So I see all that kind of stuff all the time. And you never pay attention, really. No one pays attention to what position they're holding their body in. Even as I'm sitting here now, I've got one leg crossed underneath me, and I know I'm going to feel that later in my lumbar spine, I'm sure.
I want to mark down something you just said for another conversation in about 5 minutes. Short and weak. Remember that. I want to talk about that. But first, I also want to add to another thing that we were just speaking to, where clients, their day-to-day, reminding them exactly what it is that they can possibly or potentially be doing to harm themselves. Another few things I always see is when they walk their dog. If your dog is not trained and your dog is pulling you and you walk the dog with the same arm over and over and over, that shoulder, right, that ball and socket here in the shoulder that's being yanked nonstop, there's going to be issues. Or the heavy purse. My wife does this. She's got like a 27-pound purse in the back seat, and she'll reach backwards this way, grab the purse and bring it over. I've had so many female clients with shoulder issues. And again, they think it's something that we did for 20 minutes in the gym, when it always ends up being something that they're doing in their day-to-day lives.
Oh, absolutely. It's even just a woman wearing a bra over and over will become a problem over time. You wind up with rib flare, and you wind up with anterior pelvic tilt, and you wind up with pec minor syndrome or thoracic outlet syndrome from constantly elevating your shoulders just to take some pressure off of your neck from the bra. And I experience this pretty regularly too. I have to go in and roll out my pec minor pretty constantly just to make sure that my shoulders are able to be, held in a proper position rather than rolling forward and creating that rounded shoulder. And it's just a part of daily life. Wearing clothes and sitting still for long periods is overwhelmingly taxing on our poor bodies.
Yeah, no, you're right. So to go back to where I sort of bookmarked the short and weak, I feel like there's been a sort of groupthink in the fitness industry for a while. I might have been one of them a long time ago who thought, well, if something's short, it's because it's overworked, and that it's tight because it's overworked, and you don't think short and weak. But really, I mean, now I almost think more so the opposite. A lot of times I see these things that aren't used properly, or things are overworked around it, and these muscles become short and weak. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, definitely. So I mean, there's a number of muscles that this happens to. The one that I address most frequently is the adductors. So the inner thigh, basically the muscles in the inner thigh that draw your legs together. These muscles get incredibly short because we sit for long periods of time in our legs in this just kind of stationary position where they're slightly adducted. So the adductors are now in a passive position. So they're not under tension, but they're too long for the position that your leg is in. So muscles don't like slack. It's like a rubber band. Like, for instance, my hair tie. If I've got my rubber band here, like pushed together, not unlike a muscle, it's going to draw up and it's going to get tighter in my hands versus being elongated and tight. This is what happens to the adductors in the inner thighs when people sit. So you think like, oh, I've got knee valgus or knee cave when I do squats or when I do, any type of lunging movement. You think my adductors must be tight because they're so strong, they're pulling me in. But really, in reality, it's that they've been passive and they've been in this artificially elongated position where they've drawn up that excess slack. So now they need to be inhibited first to release the muscle a little bit and lengthen it back out again. But then they need to be strengthened so that it provides support for all of the surrounding structures. That's usually one of the most important ones that I see. That and like the serratus anterior, for instance. The serratus anterior helps to pull your shoulder blade around the front side of your rib cage, or it also helps to upwardly rotate the shoulder blade. And so anytime you've been in this protracted position for too long where you have this rounded shoulder, your serratus is going to get like insanely tight, but it's also going to be incredibly weak. So you can't recruit it when you need to necessarily because it's in this shortened position.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to describe it. Thank you for using that. I think the adductor was a great analogy for people to see exactly what can be short and weak. And I don't know if it's because people don't know otherwise or because they're lying to themselves, but it is funny how even trainers who I know should have the knowledge, always think if something is shortened, it's because it's overworked. And sometimes that's just not the case, right? These are shortened because they're not being worked, right? They're not, like you said, they're not, you have your day-to-day issues that are causing these things to happen. So let's go over why somebody, I know we've kind of already hit on it, why somebody would see a corrective exercise specialist just over a certified personal trainer. So speak to, I mean, the trainers will understand this, but speak to the general public. If I'm Susie and I do want to work out, but maybe I have some other issues, why do I see you over just a CPT?
So personal training is great for someone who already has a pretty solid foundation of fitness, and they're not coming from a place of chronic pain, muscular imbalance, recurring injuries or previous injuries that are still giving them problems. Most of the clients that I see have been pretty active most of their lives, but they have these recurring problems. For instance, I have a lady who, she suffered an injury a couple of years ago that it sort of resolved, but it never resolved completely. She went back to training as normal. And since then, it has just exponentially gotten worse. And now she got to the point where she couldn't put on her shoe, put on her sock. She couldn't have relations with her husband, even without extreme pain and discomfort. And I also see clients who have these like lifelong diagnoses, like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is it's a syndrome that it basically expresses laxity in joints, laxity in muscle tissues, kind of a delicateness of tissue that can make one prone to like muscle tears or joint dislocations and things like that. But for the average person, like the average, let's say 42-year-old who graduated college in their early 30s, they got a career, they got a family, and now they're sedentary. They're sitting in an office doing the exact same thing all the time. Well, then they go to their CrossFit class and they go to do, I don't know, like a clean and press or something. And they don't have the overhead mobility that they need anymore to adequately perform the press. And so this rounded shoulder, boop, you've got rotator cuff problems all of a sudden. So you create, through lifestyle, you create these imbalances, and then you start experiencing a little pain or injury or whatever, or you've never even worked out a day in your life. And you may want to see a corrective exercise specialist just to establish a solid foundation, see where you are and see where you need to go. So it really runs a very wide gamut of people that you might want to see. From anyone with like a lifelong disorder to somebody who's never been into a gym in a day in their life. So, I mean, there's really
Yeah. And, you know, a lot, or I should say almost all of corrective exercise specialists are also certified personal trainers. Typically, the route you go is first you're a certified personal trainer, and then you add those sorts of things on once you have experience. But that doesn't mean, admittedly so, which I did earlier in the podcast, that that's something that they're absolutely tied to and specialize in, right? So although I am a corrective exercise specialist, I don't do it in my day-to-day practice anymore, right? So I have the certification, but if one of my clients were to come to me with issues that I believe a good corrective exercise specialist, somebody who uses it more day-to-day would need, I would send them to somebody else who I knew had that background and was able to deal with that more than I would. And really what it comes down to is just seeing these things more often, right? It's not always knowledge, right? It's these anecdotal things. If somebody comes to you and they have plantar fasciitis and you've already seen this 65 times, you know all the different nuances to plantar fasciitis. You know how to deal with it. You know what the chances are. Okay, what shoes are they wearing? How old are they? What are the movements they're doing or not doing? And you can see all these things. But I think it's important both as trainers, right, to understand, again, your strengths, as we talked about earlier, and send your clients to the appropriate people. They'll appreciate it, right? That's why you network in the industry, whether it's a corrective exercise specialist or a physical therapist or a sports medicine doctor. Don't just try to pretend you know everything. And then from the client's perspective, you know, work with your trainer, but you can also go see other specialists. Your trainer shouldn't get mad at you to go do that, right? So if somebody wants to come to Elizabeth and just do corrective exercise, but they have another personal trainer, Elizabeth's not going to take that to heart, right? She's not going to let her ego get in the way. She'll say, no problem. Come to me. We'll help you with your plantar fasciitis so that we can send you back to your personal trainer so you can do the day-to-day things you enjoy doing with them.
Yeah, that is kind of the goal of corrective exercise already, is you typically have, depending on the issue that you're trying to address, you typically have an end date for your corrective exercise program. So you may come from a gym or come from a personal trainer or come from any other fitness professional to a corrective exercise specialist. And depending on how severe the issue is, you're going to have a set amount of time. So I usually say that muscular issues or just general movement dysfunction issues are like 3 months. And then like connective tissue issues, so like tendinitis and things like that, are usually 6 to 8 months. And then if you're looking at like postural corrections like scoliosis or hypokyphosis, things like that relate to the spine, are going to be over a year. But there's typically a start and an end date. And if you're somebody who's got a corrective exercise specialist, you're doing your homework, you're readdressing your movement patterns, and you're addressing your lifestyle and your daily behaviors and things, and then you graduate. And that's kind of the goal for that, is so it's a set amount of time, and it's not like personal training sort of is free flowing and there's not really an end date. Maybe you have a weight loss goal, but yeah, you want to stay fit even after the weight loss goal. So personal training is more like open-ended, and corrective exercise is let's address this and get you out the door.
So one of the questions I always get from young personal trainers is, what do I charge? How do I charge? How do I go about making a program or a prescription of exercise? How does that work for someone like you who's doing only corrective exercise? Are you charging on a monthly basis, a program basis? Give me an example of how you go about that.
So a lot of corrective exercise specialists will charge like based on the month duration. They'll set like a number of times per week, and then they set it based on the program for the muscle groups that they're treating. So they may set like a initial, kind of like Invisalign. Actually, I don't know if you've ever had Invisalign, but they give you this initial package price, and then they may have to add on at the end. That's kind of how corrective exercise specialists usually work in my experience. So if I have somebody who comes to me with, let's say, proximal hamstring tendinopathy or whatever, I'm going to say 8 months, twice a week, it is this total amount. Some of my clients still go week to week, and some of my clients pay by a number of sessions. Some of my clients are just on payment plans. I don't have a set way to charge. I like to go with whatever the person can afford in the moment, because I kind of prioritize accessibility over income, which, I mean, that's make it or break it for a business usually, but I like doing that anyway, because I feel like I can get to more people that way.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm the same way. And it's, everyone goes about the finances of their fitness business differently, but I think, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but making the finances secondary and the money secondary is going to help you long term, right? If you're really focused on your clients and doing a good job and getting as many clients healthy and happy as you can, word of mouth is going to spread. You're going to grow at a rate that you can handle. We talk about that a lot too. If you want to charge too little, that could also make sure that your growth rate, you have too many clients coming in at once. What happens then is you don't have the experience at that point to handle all those clients, and you do a bad job, and then word of mouth goes against you, and you don't build in the proper format. So there's a reason the sort of invisible hand of the market to talk economics works, where there's a price level that you should be charging, and there's a rate of growth that you should be looking for. Your goal shouldn't be to get as much money as you can as fast as you can, because it doesn't work out that way.
Oh yeah, it definitely doesn't. I see every social SES class person. So every strata you can think of as far as like income base, and I like to make it accessible for everyone. I keep using that word, accessible. Yeah. But when I started my fitness journey back in 2009, 2010, I had zero income. I was a student. I was barely scraping by. I couldn't afford a personal trainer. We could barely afford a membership at Planet Fitness. And so that was, $10 a month. And so you're thinking like, oh, well, that's nothing. But if I had the ability to get a personal trainer, then I may have been in a lot better shape a lot sooner. And so I think about that time. I started working out at home after that with a bottle of laundry detergent and a jump rope. And so like I had absolutely nothing. And so I want to be able to take my services of corrective exercise, which I think is almost as important as any fitness thing that you can do, really. I mean, if you're injured or you're chronically in pain, you need access. You need to be able to access somebody who can help you resolve that without necessarily having to go to the doctor or something like that. Like, you should be able to go to somebody who's going to address your global movement patterns and see where it goes from there, or work with your medical team. I've got a lot of clients who bring their MRIs to me, and I work with their doctors to help get a resolution to, whatever's going on with them inside their bodies, movement patterns.
Yeah. And for younger trainers or newer trainers or people who only work with younger clients, what you have to understand is the inevitability of injuries is there. As you get older, you're going to get injured, you're going to get hurt, your body starts to fall apart. So you should be training your clients for the future, right? Your end goal should be, how do I make sure this 31-year-old is still able to do all the things they want to do now, or all the things they like to do now at 61? And how you do that is to look globally. And a lot of times, if you don't have that skill set, it's okay to farm that out to somebody else. But let your client know, hey, listen, I can help you with overall hypertrophy and strength and those sorts of things. But I think, you do have some issues with A, B, and C and X, Y, and Z, and you should probably go see a specialist to make sure that we're continuing to keep you healthy for the longevity. And that will make sure that your client keeps coming back to you. Because guess what? If they can deadlift 400 pounds, but they keep, yanking their hamstring, well, you're not getting any sessions out of it, because they're going to cancel on you for the next 3 months until the hamstring heals. So it benefits both your client and your wallet to make sure that they stay happy and healthy.
Oh, exactly. I see a lot of people that, they work simultaneously with personal trainers, but I think what is freeing, at least for the individual coming to a corrective exercise specialist, is that when they walk in my door, I say, I don't care what you look like. I care how you move and how you feel. And so I am, in that way, I almost take the pressure off. And so, like, they don't have to worry about losing weight. They don't have to worry about lifting a specific amount of weight. They just have to worry about feeling and moving really, really well. Sometimes it's a little more frustrating even than like actually doing a 400-pound deadlift, because, you're doing bird dogs on the floor and you can't, keep your body from rotating, or you can't really like hold yourself up very well. And so it's like, it's on my own body and I can't even control it. But that's what I love about corrective exercise, is that, you see so many different problems, and you see so many different people, and you see so many different movement patterns, and it's the puzzle of it. And I often think about it as like the Matrix, like you're in the Matrix and you start to like see all these numbers and you start to see the movements, and like, it's just, yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, my brain doesn't work like yours, unfortunately. I wish it did. So I struggled with the corrective exercise test. I thought it was the hardest personal training related certification test I've ever taken. And I think you, who has more of that anatomical sleuth science mind, probably didn't feel that way. But can you maybe, for any personal trainers who are out there who are thinking about corrective exercise specialists, can you give any tips for them if they're thinking about taking the test that might help them?
Yes, actually, I went through the NASM-CES course, and that was phenomenal for me. The course is laid out super well. It's very straightforward. It is like module after module after module, chapter after chapter after chapter. There's quizzes. There are practice exams that you can take several of. The way that they approach it, if you actually read the material, print off the printable charts and things, you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong with it. It centers around just a few pivotal things like static assessments, dynamic assessments, postural assessments, and so on. But if you actually just pay attention and you go through the course as listed, you will not have a problem getting through the exam. I think 70% is the pass rate on it. And if you know an overhead squat assessment inside and out, and you know a static assessment inside and out for standing still, posture, the 6 checkpoints of ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, neck, lumbopelvic hip complex. If you've got all of those down, you will absolutely pass. You just have to go through it step by step and read everything. Try not to skip ahead, and put your ego aside. that's a big one, is a lot of personal trainers who have been in the field for a really long time are like, oh, I got this, no big deal. But if you put your ego aside and you actually read what they have to say, you'll learn a lot of new stuff too. So NASM is the one that I went through, and it was just very, very simple and straightforward.
Yeah, that's the one I went through as well. And those are great tips. So thanks for giving that. And I think when doing it, understanding the parlance and the jargon that they use is very important, because there are terminologies that people use that are a little bit different. And I think you really have to, like you said, go through it, understand NASM's terminology before you go into this taking it. And I'll be clear, I passed it on the first time. I just thought it was very science-based, right? It's not like the other tests where you have 30 to 40% of the questions based on a little bit of just common sense, right? Where you can kind of figure it out. No. If you don't know the science, you won't know the question. Or excuse me, you won't know the answer to the question, right? There's no deducing just based on like common sense. So you really have to understand how they use their terminology. And like you said, drop your ego, go through the modules and learn the science.
Yeah, that's another thing that really helped me, I think, was having a solid foundation of anatomy. I am a huge anatomy nerd. I know the directions that muscles run. I know the names of the muscles. And having a sense of kind of where your body should be in space versus what you see in front of you. If you can figure out what those muscles do and which direction they're pulling you, you can kind of get an idea for what the deviation from normal is and what's causing that. So for instance, like rounded shoulder, if you think of your shoulders pulling forward and they're not supposed to do that, you should be able to pull from your Rolodex of muscles that pull you in the opposite direction or pull you in that forward direction. And then you have a general understanding of, obviously anatomical norm, and then the muscles that are pulling you out of that. So that helped me a lot, was having a very solid understanding of anatomy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And it's for people who you don't need to know like where things innervate, right? We're not getting to that level. It's really just understanding like prime movers and antagonists and agonists and what are the pulling and the pressing and things like that, and combining that with the new things that you're going to learn, and then putting that all together, and then you'll be able to pass that test.
Yeah, the figuring out where things innervate is helpful in practice, though. After I did get my CES, there are a CES program, an individual like training session is broken down into, for me at least, I do a cardio warm up with all of my clients. Just something to get them lubed up and get them moving in the right direction. And then I go through like an inhibition and lengthening section, which is basically stretching, foam rolling, loosening up the stuff that's overactive and weak, or overactive and tight and just whatever. And then you go through like an activate, integrate portion, which, I mean, this is for your NASM CES. So activate, integrate is going to be activating the weaker or the more inhibited muscles that need work, and then integrating them into a movement pattern itself. So when you get through the inhibit and lengthen stuff, that's where it would be helpful to know what nerves do what. Know a little bit of trigger point therapy. That helped me a lot, because I've been studying that for about 3 years now, as trigger point therapy. The referred pain patterns and stuff helps me beyond anything else almost. So if somebody comes in to me and they say, oh, well, I have this pain in the arch of my foot. There's so many things that it could be all the way down the chain from hip to foot. Is it plantar, or is it is your peroneus out of whack, or is it coming from your glute med, or is it coming from your piriformis even? Is it your sciatic nerve? So there's a lot of neurology, I think, to it to a degree. Like you have to know. But yeah, trigger point helped me a lot with that too.
Yeah. And for anyone here who's hearing all of this and maybe you're a little taken back and going, whoa, how do I get there? Right? Maybe you're new to personal training and you were thinking about corrective exercise and you're hearing all of this, again, this very anatomical jargon, and it's too much for you. You'll get there, right? It takes a while. You have to see multiple clients and see different things going on, and you'll start to learn. And also, your clients understand that sometimes you have to look things up, right? My wife is a pediatrician, pediatric sports medicine doctor. sometimes she sees something and then she has to go back into the other room and look it up, right? She doesn't know everything. No, none of us do. So it's totally okay. You're gonna learn on the job. It's happened many of times, but once you learn it, it's great because you'll never forget it, right? So I've had a client come in when I was doing corrective exercise years ago, and he has basically, his left tricep had gone like completely soft. He had no, like the muscle was completely atrophying. And he was like, yeah, I'm having some pain in my shoulder blade and things like that. So, we did our due diligence after he had gone to other personal trainers and an orthopedist who somehow didn't diagnose it. We found out that he had compression in his C6, C7 that was causing that issue, right? That's where it innervates. And basically all those muscles down through there were not firing. Luckily, he got the surgery. He was fine. He's back to 95% health as far as those muscles are concerned because we caught it early enough. But, if I just pretended I knew or thought it wasn't a big deal and didn't go do my due diligence and look it up, this guy might have not had tricep function for the rest of his life. So it's on us to know that we can continue to do our due diligence outside of the purview of just the hour session we're working with the client to help them out.
Oh, absolutely. And I even look stuff up while I'm in the middle of a session. Since I work for myself, I have the luxury of having my cell phone right there, this teeny tiny little computer that I can just start looking things up. And I can't tell you how many times I've put pause on a session and, decided to, okay, let me see exactly what this is or where this runs or where this attaches or, maybe a trigger point pattern or what nerve this could be or whatever. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time in sessions over the last year and a half looking things up to make sure that I'm doing the right thing in the moment. And if you have interest and you have passion for the material that you are teaching or training or coaching, it comes in time. I eat, sleep, and breathe corrective exercise. I really do. It's so deeply ingrained in my life now. I don't know what I would do without it. And so with time, interest, and passion, I've gotten really, really good at it. Passing the test is just the first step. But if your interest and passion lie there, you will become an expert in no time. You just will eat, sleep, and breathe it like I do. And I only hope to be, as good as I'd like to be one day. I just need to keep going with it and, let my passion take over.
I wish I knew the name to this app, but when I was doing corrective exercise, I had a tablet and I had a free app. One of them was free. One of them cost like $3. And basically it showed the whole body, right? And you can go 360 around the body. And by pressing a button, you can take layers off, right? So you can see the muscles on top and then underneath, and you can see where things innervate. You can press on certain things. I can go to the foot and see where things, and it was fantastic. And my clients didn't mind it, right? Because they knew that this was not like me just telling them to go do burpees or something and like yelling at them. Like this was about me fixing a problem, right? So me having my tablet there and working with them and showing, it's like when I go see a golf professional, they take a video of me, they bring me over, they show me the video, they point out what I'm doing wrong in my swing. And that's sort of the rapport that you're going to have when you're doing corrective exercise. So it's, I would say, I'll try to write that down in the bio information here, but look for these sorts of apps. So this is what you like to do so that you can share with your client who can't see their back, right? Yeah. You can point to their serratus, but they're not gonna be able to see it. So it's important that you're able to show them what's going on, because just like in regular personal training, some clients learn visually, some clients learn sort of auditory, and some clients even learn auditory in a different way, right? You can say things 6 different ways and suddenly it catches with them. So find the manner in which you can communicate to your client what's going on the best.
Yeah, the app that I use is called Muscle and Motion. It's a yearly subscription. It's like $30 for the entire year. For me in my sessions as well. So I can, pick up my app and show the client what they're actually, working, what's creating the dysfunction. And, it's amazing. Not really many people know anatomy. And so when you start slinging out these Latin words at them, they just kind of go dead faced. And so I'm like, nope, it's this little thing. And then I have them use it, like infraspinatus, for instance. Like that seems to be a pretty dysfunctional muscle on most people, but no one's going to know what an infraspinatus is. And so I show them, on the app, and then I have them use the muscle, and then they piece that together. And then I show them in a video after the fact. I might even take video of them during the session. Videos have become just a remarkable tool for intra-set feedback. So if I have them do a set of bird dogs and then I'm videoing them from the side and then from the rear, they can see what they're doing in the moment and they can see what's not firing properly. So I use video a lot with my clients to give them that visual feedback too. But Muscle in Motion is the name of the app and it's phenomenal.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for passing that on. I'm going to check that out. So for personal trainers and other fitness professionals who are thinking about becoming a corrective exercise specialist, if they want to reach out to you with any questions, do you have a way that they can directly contact you, whether email or otherwise?
Yeah, so I actually own a website. It's called fireyourtrainer.net. Half of the website is devoted to corrective exercise and actually getting in touch with me as a corrective exercise specialist. The email address is support@fireyourtrainer.net. If you just go to the website, though, there's a contact box initially on that first page.
Awesome. And then what about Instagram or any of your other platforms where people can find you?
I do have a Facebook page that I don't really keep up with as much as I ought to. I've got a YouTube channel for Fire Your Trainer that is active, and I always look at comments. I always try to tailor the videos that I put out based on the feedback that I get and what people are looking for. So I have an exercise library of probably almost 300 videos at this point for corrective exercise and for weightlifting in general, with more so recently with corrective exercise movements. And then I have an Instagram, which is still in the works, but it should be up soon, I hope.
Well, I will put all that information below the YouTube video and on the Buzzsprout. Unfortunately, on Spotify, I can't put that information below, but I'll also, when I post this video on my Facebook account and my Instagram, I'll list all that information. But Elizabeth, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and your info, and hopefully we'll talk soon on another subject.
Awesome. Thank you so much.